Let's start with the next chapter of chemistry, atomic structure and chemical bonding. So, we are going to focus on atomic structure more in this particular video, and chemical bonding will follow after this. Okay, so those who has this particular topic in their syllabus, that is atomic structure, please pay attention. It might be ICSE or might be CBSE. Atomic structure is same universally. Okay, so atomic structure is a topic which we are going to focus on in this chapter. Let's understand what we have to study in this topic of atomic structure. So many attempts have been made to know as what is the ultimate particle of matter, that is what is matter made up of. The idea of the smallest unit of matter. uh, Before I proceed, I would just want you to take out your notebooks and pens and start taking notes of whatever uh, you know topics we are discussing. So notes are must. You have to take notes, only then you'll be able to make the answers properly. Okay. So please take notes of whatever information I'm conveying to you or whatever points I'm highlighting over here. So this was a very troubling question, that what is the ultimate particle of matter, or what is matter made up of? The idea of the smallest unit of matter was first given by Maharshi Kannada from India, of course, in the 6th century BC. According to him, matter consisted of indestructible minute particles called Parmanus. Param means ultimate and Anu means particle, and these are now called as atoms. A Parmanu does not exist in free state. Rather, it combines with other Parmanus to form bigger particle called Anu, now known as molecule. Okay, actually, they have told Anu also means atom, and Anu also means molecule. Actually, Parmanu means molecule and Anu means atom, but doesn't matter. These things will not be asked in your exam. These are just for your general knowledge, but you must understand that this knowledge was originated in India 6 BC, long time ago. There are different types of Parmanus. Each one of them exhibits specific properties. The Greek philosopher Democritus, 460 BC to 370 BC, called the Parmanu an atom, which comes from the Greek word meaning indivisible. Atom means indivisible. But the first scientific theory about the structure of matter was given by John Dalton in 1808. So this theory, which was given by John Dalton in 1808, considered atom as indivisible particles. So whatever the Greek philosopher or the philosophers from India like Maharshi Kannada considered way before John Dalton also agreed on the same thing, that atoms are the fundamental building blocks of matter. Matter is made up of atoms. The existence of different types of matter is considered to be due to different types of atoms constituting them. So John Dalton believed that, see, this was all hypothesis. John Dalton made his theory partly on the basis of understanding, partly on the basis of hypothesis, that is guessing, and partly on the basis of research and experiments. He was not in let's say 17th century, John Dalton, when he proposed this Dalton's atomic theory, he was not so well equipped so that he could give you can say experimental proof of whatever theory he was proposing, and that's why his theory was actually the theory theory word comes from thesis, and thesis is directly related with hypothesis. Hypothesis is basically guessing work. You don't know actually, but you can guess what is happening. So that is what atomic theory given by John Dalton points towards. Okay, so different type of matter around you means different types of atoms which make them up. That's what John Dalton said. So we have to remember the first thing, that is main postulates of Dalton's atomic theory. Number one, matter consists of very small and indivisible particle called atoms. John Dalton said that matter consists of very small and indivisible particles called atoms. Atoms can neither be created nor destroyed. Atoms of an element are alike in all respects, but they differ from atoms of other elements. So John Dalton sounds really convincing, really true to what most of the things which we know now about atoms. John Dalton is conveying all those things in that particular era, that is 200 years ago from today. He knew all those things because his research or his thesis, theory, hypothesis was accurate. There were some issues, there were some loopholes in his hypothesis, but which we will discuss later. But overall, if you see his theory regarding atoms, it sounds accurate. Atoms can neither be created nor destroyed. Atoms of an element are alike in all respects, but they differ from atoms of other elements. Now we know this is true. Atoms of an element combine in small whole number ratio to form molecules. H2O, hydrogen and oxygen combine to form water in the ratio of 2 is to 1. So Dalton sounds absolutely correct. Atoms of an element combine in small whole number ratios to form molecules. Atoms of one element combine with atoms of another element in a simple ratio to form molecules of compounds. So in point 4, uh, he suggested that atoms of the same element combine in small whole number ratios to form molecules of that element. Okay, so my example was wrong over here. Atoms of one single element, let's say oxygen, right? Oxygen combines with other oxygen to give oxygen molecule. So this molecule is of the element oxygen, but oxygen can also combine with hydrogen in the ratio 2 is to 1. Hydrogen combines with oxygen in the ratio 2 is to 1 to form water. So atoms of the same element can combine together to form molecules of an element, and atoms of different elements also can combine together to form molecules of a compound. Next, atoms are the smallest unit of matter that can take part in a chemical reaction. Atoms are the smallest units of matter that can take part in a chemical reaction. The latest research on atoms has proved that most of the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory are incorrect, except that atoms take part in chemical reactions. Most of the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory are incorrect, which is proved by the latest research. See, Dalton was accurate in his, you can say, assumptions or theory which he proposed 200 years back. But now, if we go into details of what he proposed, we find that there were some mistakes. But he was correct up to an extent. But then there were some mistakes, except one fact which said that, which Dalton said that atoms take part in chemical reaction. Atoms are the smallest particles which take part in a chemical reaction. That is the sixth postulate. So what was the problem with the postulates number 1 to 5? We will discuss that. One of the first indications that atoms consist of subatomic particles, that is, they are made up of particles, charged particles, has been put forward by studies of static electricity. So static electricity is basically electrification of objects by rubbing with each other. Do you know when a comb is rubbed with your hair and this comb is brought near to the bits of paper, it attracts those bits of paper? Do you know that? Yes, you have studied that in class 8. And this phenomena, when two bodies are rubbed with each other and they acquire some charges, and with this presence of these charges they can attract certain objects, this phenomena is known as static electricity. This static electricity was the first proof, it was the first proof that matter consisted of charged particle, or rather you can say atoms consisted of charged particles. And these charged particles were known as subatomic particles. What are subatomic particles? Subatomic particles are the particles which are within an atom, inside an atom, right? So John Dalton did not know about these charged particles. He thought that atoms are indivisible, which the Greek philosopher Democritus or the Indian philosopher Maharshi Kanada suggested earlier. The same thing was suggested by John Dalton because he was not very well equipped. But after later, when this charge was associated with atoms, actually the presence of charged particles inside an atom was discovered way before than John Dalton. But it was not connected in a proper way with atom. But then when scientists started connecting the dots and they started making up the whole story that uh, the charged particles are basically the fundamental or subatomic particles of an atom itself. And that's why uh, on rubbing two objects together with each other, they exchange these charged particles and they acquire some charges. They acquire some charges with the help of which they can attract or repel each other. This proved that atoms, they are made up of subatomic particles which has some charge. Okay. In 1833, remember this history, this is really important. In 1833, Michael Faraday, showed that the flow of electricity is due to the flow of charged particles. G.J. Stoney, one more chemist, one more physicist, or you can say scientist, in 1874 first suggested the name electron for this electrical particle. However, it was J.J. Thomson for the first time who showed the existence of these charged particles and thus discovered electrons, the negatively charged particles. E. Goldstein, after that, a German chemist, a German scientist, discovered protons, positively charged particle in an atom. Later, James Chadwick discovered neutrons. The electrons, protons, and neutrons are called the fundamental or subatomic particles of an atom. And these particles are the building blocks of all atoms of an element. Do you see the timeline? Do you see how science progresses? So this is more about atomic structure. When you're studying about structure of atom or atomic structure, it gives you a greater idea, a larger idea of what an atom is made up of. This is what we have to study in this chapter. And as you can see, how science has progressed over the past, you can say, centuries. How science has moved ahead, how the ideas have changed, how the new ideas have been discovered, and the old ideas were discarded. You can see the progress of science and you can see how things move ahead, and you can see that nothing is permanent in science, everything changes with time. Why? Because new things are understood and learned, because we don't know how the universe works, we are trying to understand it. Okay, so nobody has the right to say, even the greatest scientist in their time has no right to say that I know everything. about how things work. We are still learning, and that is the attitude you should have while studying science, whether it's chemistry or physics or any subject for that matter. It can be mathematics also, right? Because the ideas are continuously evolving. So John Dalton first suggested the atomic theory, then the changes were made in his atomic theory, and new atomic theories were developed by the scientists who came after John Dalton. Because John Dalton said that atom is indivisible, then the charge particle, the presence of charge particle, suggested that atom is made up of some other particles which were discovered by the scientist who came after um, uh, John Dalton, namely Faraday, and then G.J. Stoney and J.J. Thomson, Goldstein, Chadwick, Rutherford. These all people came and said that the atom is actually divisible. It is made up of subatomic particles, and now you would be surprised to know that there are more particles within these subatomic particles. These subatomic particles are also made up of some different particles. You will study that in modern physics if you take if you want to study physics in detail in future years. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's start with the basic definition of an element. What is element? Element is a substance which is made up of only one type of atoms. Element is a pure substance that can neither be decomposed into nor formed from simple substances by ordinary physical or chemical methods. Element is pure substance. Remember that. Always remember that element is a pure substance that can neither be decomposed into nor formed from simple substances. So element is not formed from any other simple substances. It is already a simple substance. It is already a pure substance. For example, carbon is an element. Carbon is an element because it cannot be split into two or more simpler substances by ordinary methods like heating, breaking, or passing electricity. But you should note that radioactivity is one process which can be done on radioactive substances, where these radioactive substances decay and higher energy nuclear reaction can transfer one elementary substance into another. So elements can be transformed from one form to another, and that too only specific type of elements, which are radioactive elements. Have you read or have you heard about nuclear reactions, atomic bombs, atomic weapons? So in these nuclear reactions or atomic weapons, with the help of these radioactive substances, huge amount of energy is created, and these radioactive substances, they transform from one substance to another. That is an exception, and that is a very unusual phenomena which we see around us. But generally, element is a pure substance and that can neither be decomposed into and nor formed from any other simpler substances by ordinary physical or chemical methods. There are 118 elements known till date. This also you should know. How many elements are known till date? 118. If you Google search right now, as of today, you can say that 118 elements are known, out of which around 90 elements are naturally occurring, and the remaining, you can say 28 elements are laboratory made in laboratory. But they are all elements. They are all simpler substances already. Right? So what are the examples of elements? Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. You must be knowing this. Okay, let's go to atoms. What is an atom? Atom is the smallest particle of an element that exhibits all the properties of that element. It may or may not exist independently, but takes part in every chemical reaction. So this is all we have to say about an atom, which we have understood so far, more than John Dalton. John Dalton said that uh, John Dalton said that atoms are indivisible, but now we know that atoms are divisible, and they are known to be made up of subatomic particles, electrons, protons, and neutrons. But in the definition of an atom, the things which we must say, the things which I have highlighted here, the things which you have to take note of is that atoms is the smallest particle of an element that exhibits all the property of an element, and it may or may not exist independently but takes part in every chemical reaction. For example, take a small piece of zinc. Zinc is an element, okay, and grind it into smaller pieces. All these pieces shows the properties of zinc. On grinding them further, they break up into very tiny particles which cannot even be seen with eyes, but they still shows the properties of zinc. But there come a stage when the particles cannot be further subdivided into particles exhibiting the properties of zinc. These indivisible particles are called the atoms of zinc. In other words, an atom is the smallest possible unit of an element. So you can say that elements are made up of atoms. Elements are made up of atoms. How many types of elements are there? 118 elements are known so far. They are put in the periodic table. How many atoms are known so far? Of course, 118. Because each type of an atom represents each type of an element. So we have an element, let's say carbon, right? So we have an atom of carbon. The smallest particle of an carbon element is atom of carbon. This atom of carbon shows all the properties of carbon element. It combines with oxygen to form carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, and there are numerous other properties which the atom of carbon can show, which belongs to the properties of element carbon. Constituents of an element. Now, what is atom made up of? Very important question. Let's start with a story. Now we are going into the history of science, history of physics or chemistry, you can say. See, you are studying chemistry, but this particular topic belongs to physics originally. These all scientists who discovered, who found out what atom is made up of, they were originally physicists. But since some layers of physics and chemistry, they overlap, and some topics are common between physics and chemistry, so we can't exactly say that this is physics or chemistry. So we talk about these topics as science overall. Okay, let's get into the history of science, and let's go, let's say, around 100 years ago. What happened around 100 years ago? Revolutionary things happened in science around 100 years ago, and this marked the beginning of modern era and the end of industrial revolution. You might have studied that in history. And this all things, they mostly happened in and around Europe. In and around Europe, the whole revolution started. Also in America, later on, the progress of modern physics, it took place in America as well, and then it spread throughout the whole world. But the epicenter of this whole beginning of this whole story was Europe. Let's start. Mostly Britain, okay, and they had very, you can say, keen interest in science, the British people, and it all started with them. First British, and then Germans, and then Americans, and Russians were also there, and then there were Indians. Some of the Indians were also there, and uh, it was a great era still which is going on, but now the things are different. Let's start from the beginning. Discovery of electrons. Let's start with the discovery of electrons, how electrons were discovered. So this is a kind of a story, okay, and we are going to learn many new uh, revelations which are going to be given to us. You have studied in, many of the students of ICSE have studied these topics in class 8th already. It is not new for them, but still, let's because we have this topic in class 9, we should uh, go through it all over with a new, you can say, perspective. Let's start. Discovery of electrons. William Crook, a British scientist, noted that gases are ordinary poor conductors of electricity. Yes, of course. Metals, in solid state, metals are the best conductors of electricity, good conductors of electricity. Non-metals are not very good conductors of electricity, and out of which gases are the poorest conductors of electricity. But however, when a high voltage, that is of 10,000 volts, charge from an induction coil applied to the tubes filled with gases at low pressure, 0.01 mm Hg. Now what is this 0.01 mm Hg? Okay, let me tell you about this pressure first, and then we'll take this talk ahead. So mmHg, or millimeter of Hg, millimeter of mercury. Hg is a symbol of element mercury. This is nothing but uh, not SI unit, not SI unit. This is a unit of pressure, unit of pressure. Okay, so what is the value of atmospheric pressure? For example, atmospheric pressure has a value of 760 mm of Hg. That means the gases around us in our atmosphere are at a pressure, or are exerting a pressure of 760 millimeter of mercury. Now what exactly is this 760 millimeter of mercury? This is height of the mercury column in a barometer. So you don't know what is a barometer, right? You will study about barometer in physics. So you have to wait for that. Till we get to that topic, you must wait for it. Okay. So this mm of Hg is basically unit of pressure, atmospheric pressure, which is measured in millimeter of mercury. Okay. Now what they are saying is the gases were filled in a tube. The gases were filled in a tube, and they were at very low pressure, that is 0.01 millimeter of Hg. That's a very low pressure compared to the atmospheric pressure, almost like partial vacuum. This resembles to partial vacuum. Partial vacuum means very, very low pressure. So we had glass tubes in which very low pressure gases were filled. They were like almost resembling to partial vacuums. And on these tubes, which were attached with some induction coil means they are some kind of coils. See, do you see this induction coil? These coils, these are induction coils basically. So through these induction coils, high voltage, 10,000 volt of electricity, huge amount of electricity was passed through these gases which are filled in this tube at a very low pressure. And in these conditions, very high voltage, very low pressure, gases filled in tubes, induction coil applying very high voltage of electricity to these gases, the gases became good conductors of electricity. They started conducting electricity. So you can actually see electricity flowing through the gases in the form of sparks or in the form of rays. Can you see electricity flowing through copper wire? No, you can't. You can feel it when you touch the copper wire, but you can't see electricity passing through it. But can you see lightning? Yes, you can see lightning. Why can you see lightning? You can see lightning because, first of all, it is a huge amount, millions of volts of electricity, huge amount of electricity. Second, the lightning falls through atmosphere or gas, and whenever lightning falls through a gas or atmosphere, it can be seen in the form of a spark. In the same way, when high voltage was applied to these gases, which were stored at a very low pressure within these glass tubes, we could see some rays of light. And these rays of light were nothing but electricity. This electricity was conducted by these gases, right? And these electricity begin to flow from cathode to anode in the form of rays. Now, again, breaking up into breaking up these statements into small chunks and understanding what is cathode, what is anode. So cathode is a positive terminal, anode is a negative terminal. This negative, I'm sorry, I just said the reverse of it. This positive terminal is anode, and this negative terminal is cathode. So what happens? Electricity flows into this chamber containing low pressured gases through these electrodes, which are fixed inside this glass chamber, in which the gases are kept at a very low pressure. So you see that some rays are emitted from the negative terminal, from the negative electrode, and these rays travel towards the positive terminal. You see the rays, just like you see the lightning in the atmosphere. You see rays of light emitted from the negative electrode going towards positive electrode. Since these rays originate from negative plate, they start from the negative plate, that is the cathode, and travel from the cathode towards the anode. They are called cathode rays. They are called cathode rays. Okay, so when this experiment was conducted by William Crook, he noted that cathode rays were formed. But William Crook was unable to understand what was happening, where these rays were coming from. He was unable to understand. But this was a very significant experiment. It showed some kind of rays were being produced. And production of rays led to the, you can say, research of this experiment by greatest of scientists. Later on, we saw J.J. Thomson studying this characteristic of and constituents of these cathode rays. So J.J. Thomson was the scientist who took interest in this experiment, which was originally conducted by William Crook. And J.J. Thomson decided that I will study what is happening over here. Why these cathode rays are being emitted by the negative terminal, and why are they going towards the positive terminal, and what are they made up of? So J.J. Thomson, he did this experiment all over again, and the apparatus he used was known as discharge tube. What do you mean by the word discharge? To get to discharge, that is to, it means that to give out. Discharge means to give out. So what was discharged here? Some particles were discharged here from cathode, and they were traveling towards anode. So these particles were known as cathode rays. Okay, so J.J. Thomson called this tube, this apparatus, as discharge tube or a cathode ray tube. Okay, so now this was very famous in that era in among the scientists which were operating at that time as a cathode ray tube. So every day, the scientists used to go to the lab and perform experiments on cathode ray tube and try to find out what is actually happening. And this took years and years of research. It is not that चलो बेटा पढ़ाई कर लो कल एग्जाम है अपने को 90% चाहिए एक दिन में नहीं हो सकता है. Any success takes years and years of uh, you know concerted and you can say a lot of effort is behind this kind of research which we are studying about right now. So a discharge tube is a hard glass tube fitted with two metal plates known as electrodes, one of which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery and is called anode or positive electrode. Do you see this? Discharge tube is a hard glass tube fitted with two metal plates known as electrodes. One of the metal plate is connected with positive terminal of the battery and it is called anode, positive electrode. While the other electrode which is connected to the negative terminal of the battery is called cathode or negative electrode. It has a side tube through which a gas can be pumped. It has a side tube through which gas can be pumped out by using vacuum pump to create vacuum. So first the vacuum is created, and then a little amount of some selected gas is filled in at a very low pressure. And when electrical discharge of 10,000 volts is passed through the gases at very low pressures, cathode rays are produced. Now you know the whole story, whole apparatus, whole you can say setup of this experiment, right? We have a hard glass tube fitted with two metal plates known as electrodes, each of them connected with a positive terminal and a negative terminal. One is connected with a negative terminal, cathode or negative electrode, and the other, which is connected with positive terminal, is known as anode. And when huge electricity of 10,000 volt is passed through this electrodes, we can observe the rays of light through this partially evacuated tube, in which gas is there at a very low pressure. So mostly it is volume with a very less amount of gas, and in this case the gas is conducting electricity, and we can see cathode rays emerging from cathode and ending up at anode. What are the properties of cathode rays? I hope you're noting down each and everything, because मैं बहुत आराम से पढ़ा रहा हूँ, बहुत आराम से. अभी लेट मी टेल यू 36 मिनट्स हो चुके हैं वीडियो के, अभी तक मैं सिर्फ सेकंड पेज पे पहुंचा हूं. तो इमेजिन मैं अगर इतनी डिटेल में जा रहा हूं, मैं क्यों इतना टाइम ले रहा हूं? बिकॉज देर आर सो मेनी डिटेल्स जस्ट फिल्ड इन, द पेजेस आर फिल्ड विद डिटेल. अगर मैं सिर्फ इसको रीड करूं, मैं कोई एक्सप्लेनेशन ना दूं, मैं कोई कन्वर्सेशन ना करूं तुमसे, तो मैं ये नहीं समझ में आएगी चीज. बिकॉज एक तो ये चीज 100 साल पहले हुई थी आपसे, तुम थे नहीं वहां पे, तुम्हें इसकी स्टोरी समझनी है. तो just by reading will not help you, guys. You need to have a conversation, which is happening from my side to you. It's a one-sided conversation, but it is definitely a very helpful conversation. मैं बहुत आराम आराम से चीजें तुम्हें बता रहा हूँ, रिपीट कर करके बता रहा हूँ. इसके साथ अगर तुम नोट्स ले लोगे ना, ये चीज तुम्हारे माइंड में फिट हो जाएगी हमेशा के लिए. अब तुम्हें कभी प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा कि इलेक्ट्रॉन्स की डिस्कवरी कैसे हुई थी, तुम्हें पूरी स्टोरी याद रहेगी. तुम्हें ये स्टोरी मुझे ऐसे याद करवानी है कि तुम वहां पे पर्सनली प्रेजेंट थे. जब जे थॉमसन ये डिस्कवरी कर रहा था, तो तुम वहां पे खड़े रह के देख रहे थे. इसलिए इसके लिए कोई बहुत ही कटिंग एज टेक्नोलॉजी वाले एनिमेटेड वीडियोस की जरूरत नहीं है. ऑल वी रिक्वायर is to have a good conversation, so that you can use your imagination and you can understand what was happening and what is happening. चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. Properties of cathode rays. So cathode rays travel from cathode to anode in straight lines. First property, they travel from cathode to anode in straight lines. ठीक है, सिंपल है, इसमें तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. They cause a greenish yellow fluorescence on soda glass screen placed in the tube. So if a screen, soda glass. Now, many of you doesn't know or what is a soda glass. They don't know. So there are certain substances present around us, on which if these kind of rays they strike, they shine. These substances, they shine, and this shine is called as fluorescence. Fluorescence is fluorescent colored shine. Soda glass is this same kind of substance. Other substance which produce fluorescence when these rays hit them is zinc sulfide. Zinc sulfide is a substance whose screen, when placed inside this tube, and when these cathode rays hit this screen or the layer of zinc sulfide, it shows the property of fluorescence. Fluorescence is a greenish yellow shine. Soda glass is also a similar substance. So what is soda glass made up of? Let's find out. So this soda glass, it is a mixture. which is used for making this glass bottles and window glasses. So basically it's a glass. So why am I calling it a mixture? It is not a compound, it's a mixture of all these different compounds which you see over here. And some of these compounds, when mixed in a certain proportion, they make up they are responsible for making up a fluorescent substance. Fluorescent substance means which produce fluorescence when certain kind of rays hit them, just like zinc sulfide. So it is used for checking the presence of cathode rays. Soda glass is used for checking the presence of cathode rays, same as zinc sulfide. Okay, so that is one of the property of cathode ray. They produce fluorescence on fluorescent substances, just like zinc sulfide and soda glass. Third thing, third property of cathode ray is that they are affected by electric field. That is, they are inflected or attracted towards positive field and deflected or repelled from negative field. So do you see over here in this figure there is a negative and positive charge plates kept near the hard glass test tube or discharge tube or cathode ray tube, and you see all the rays are turning or getting attracted towards the positively charged plate. That shows what? That shows that cathode rays are affected by electric field. They are attracted towards positive charge and they are repelled from the negative charge. And that shows, because they are attracted towards positive charge, it shows a very important property of cathode ray, that is they carry a negative charge. They are negatively charged. They are negatively charged in nature. Okay. So that is the next property, you can say third property of cathode ray. We have to study 8 properties of cathode ray and you will know everything about cathode ray. And trust me, no other book, it is my personal experience as a teacher since last more than 10 years now. It is my personal experience that while I've been comparing different authors and different book, this book is giving you the best possible information which is relatable, which can be you can say remembered easily, and you can say which is the most accurate, very nicely explained, better than Viraf Dalal, better than S. Chan, better than any other you can say book. This book is giving you a very good information. So if you take notes from this book, question is asked to you from any corner, you will be able to answer about the structure of atom, atomic structure. Okay, let's go ahead. Fourth property of cathode ray. When a beam of cathode ray is made to fall upon hard metallic targets like tungsten, X-rays are produced. This is very important. How are X-rays produced? Do you know what is X-ray? X-rays are some special rays which can penetrate through opaque objects like human body, but they cannot penetrate through hard objects like human bones, like metals. But certain opaque objects like our skin, like our muscles, it can penetrate through, but it cannot penetrate through bones. And that's why X-rays are used for photographing our bones to detect if there is any fracture in our bones, right? So how are X-rays produced? When cathode ray strike hard metallic targets like tungsten, X-rays are produced. That's one more important property of X-ray. Cathode ray penetrate through matter. Okay, not through metals or through hard matter, but most of the matter are such that X-rays the cathode rays can penetrate them. Cathode ray cause ionization of gas through which they pass. What do you mean by the word ionization? Ionization of gas. Now, generally, gases are made up of molecules, right? But these molecules are converted into ions, charged particles, when cathode rays are passed through them. So, cathode ray cause ionization. They cause ionization of gas through which they pass. The ratio of the charge E to the mass m of the particle constituting cathode rays remains the same. That is the charge to mass ratio, which is equal to 1.76 into 10 raised to 11 coulomb per kg, irrespective of the nature of the gas taken and of the metal forming the cathode. So this is one very important property not discussed in many of the books. So just imagine that here the gas which is stored at a very low pressure inside this cathode ray tube or discharge tube, this gas is replaced by some other gas. First you take helium, then you take hydrogen, then you take some other gas, maybe oxygen, then you take some other gas, maybe carbon dioxide. Whatever you gas you take, whatever gas you take, whatever metal you use over here in the place of cathode or anode, but the nature of cathode rays always remains the same. That means no matter what gas you fill in the discharge tube, no matter what metals you connect to your cathode and anode, the nature of cathode rays remains the same. That means cathode rays are, you can say, connected with the elementary particles of any metal, any type of matter, any type of element, any type of atom. Whatever atom, whatever type of atom you have, whatever type of element you have in the place of this gas or this cathode, the nature of cathode rays remains the same. And that actually is, you can say, a huge breakthrough and huge, you can say, evidence that all the matter, all the elements, all the atoms are made up of the same kinds of subatomic particles, which are basically these cathode rays, which are made up of electrons. We will see that now. So conclusion में हम लोग पढ़ने वाले हैं. They produce, cathode ray produce a shadow of an opaque object placed in their path and make a light paddle wheel rotate. Oh, if they produce a shadow and if they can make a light paddle wheel rotate, that means this is not just light rays. Light ray cannot make any object move. सनलाइट के आगे तुम एक लाइट पैडल व्हील रखोगे, वो पैडल व्हील ऐसे रोटेट होगा क्या? पेपर का एक व्हील बना के रखोगे तो नहीं होगा. कैथोड रे के पाथ में अगर लाइट पैडल व्हील रखेंगे तो वो रोटेट होगा. मतलब क्या है? These rays, cathode rays, are made up of particles. What are these particles? Let's talk about that. So what is the conclusion of Thomson based on this whole cathode ray experiment? So Thomson, he concluded that cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles, now called electrons. The name electron meaning atom of negative electricity. Electron itself means atom of negative electricity or a negatively charged particle, was given by Johnson Stoney. So cathode rays are made up of electrons, negatively charged particles. These negatively charged particles are an integral part of all atoms, and I will underline this, all atoms. All atoms, any kind of atom. इसलिए मैंने बोला था कि whatever material you take for this cathode, whatever gas you fill in the cathode ray tube, the nature of cathode ray does not change. That means cathode rays are same irrespective of the material used for cathode and gas filled, irrespective of the type of gas filled inside the cathode ray or discharge tube. That means, what does that mean? That means every matter, all elements, they consist of atoms, and all atoms are made up of the same kinds of subatomic particles. Those are known as electrons. All atoms, irrespective of what elements they belong to, they all consist of electrons, and electrons are same in all kinds of elements. Okay, electrons have both definite mass and definite electric charge, both of which are independent of the nature of the gas in the discharge tube. So electrons are common to all the atoms. They have same charge, same mass, definite charge, and they are alike in all aspects, irrespective of the atom to which they belong. तो भाई कार्बन के पास भी इलेक्ट्रॉन है, कार्बन भी इलेक्ट्रॉन से बना है, कार्बन के अंदर भी इलेक्ट्रॉन है, ठीक है। ऑक्सीजन के अंदर भी इलेक्ट्रॉन है, सोडियम के अंदर भी इलेक्ट्रॉन है। ये सारे एलिमेंट्स हैं जिनके एटम्स के पास इलेक्ट्रॉन्स हैं। डिफरेंट डिफरेंट एलिमेंट्स, मेटालिक एलिमेंट्स, नॉन मेटालिक एलिमेंट्स, सॉलिड एलिमेंट्स, गैसियस एलिमेंट्स, लिक्विड एलिमेंट्स, बट दे ऑल हैव इलेक्ट्रॉन्स. All of their metals have their electrons, and these electrons are alike in all aspects. They all have the same mass, the same charge. Yeah, the number of electrons are different in different elements. कार्बन के पास 12 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है, ऑक्सीजन के पास 16 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है इन ऑल, एंड सोडियम के पास 20 सॉरी सोडियम के पास 11 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स. मैंने गलत बोला, कार्बन के पास 6 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है, ऑक्सीजन के पास 8 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है और सोडियम के पास 11 इलेक्ट्रॉन्स है. They all have electrons and they all are same. The electrons are same in their characteristic properties, but the number of electrons are different with different types of atoms. ठीक है, तो इलेक्ट्रॉन्स की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक अभी हमको पढ़नी है. We have studied and concluded the characteristics about cathode rays, but cathode rays, as we have concluded, as Thomson has concluded for us with his experiment, that all the cathode rays have got the same characteristic, and cathode rays are made up of electrons. So now we can guess what an electron is. Properties of electrons. Please note these things. Electrons from all sources are alike, having identical mass. They are a constituent parts of all atoms. देखो पहला ही स्टेटमेंट वो लोग ने क्या लिख दिया है, इलेक्ट्रॉन्स फ्रॉम ऑल सोर्सेस, मतलब कोई भी एलिमेंट का इलेक्ट्रॉन ले लो, दे आर अलाइक, हैविंग आइडेंटिकल मास, सबका मास सेम है. They are constituent part of all atoms. All atoms, they constitute of electrons. The mass of an electron is 1 upon 1837 times the mass of an hydrogen atom. The mass of an electron is 1 upon 1837 times the mass of an hydrogen atom. An electron carries unit negative charge of magnitude of minus 1.602 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. ठीक है, एन इलेक्ट्रॉन कैरीज अ यूनिट नेगेटिव चार्ज. इसका नेगेटिव चार्ज यहाँ पे दिया है, इसको लर्न करना है. इसके मास का कंपैरिजन हाइड्रोजन एटम या प्रोटॉन के साथ दिया है, इसको लर्न करना है. इसके मास को लर्न करना है. ठीक है. द इलेक्ट्रॉन इज एक्सट्रीमली स्मॉल, इट्स रेडियस इज लेस देन 1 into 10 raised to minus 15 meter. So the order of magnitude of the size of electron is 10 raised to minus 16 meter. They cannot be seen even with the most powerful microscope available, because they are present inside atoms. Atoms can be hardly seen with the most powerful microscope. Then how can electrons be seen? ठीक है. ओके, द डेफिनेशन ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स. समझ में आया अभी तक का स्टोरी? स्टोरी कहां से शुरू होता है? एटॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर से. तो सबने पहले हिस्ट्री से हमने शुरू किया कि सबने गेस किया है कि एटम किससे बना. ठीक है. फिर हमने हमारे 100 years ago वाले द बिगिनिंग एरा ऑफ मॉडर्न फिजिक्स पे, ठीक है, फिर एलिमेंट को डिफाइन किया, एटम को डिफाइन किया, फिर कंस्टिट्यूएंट्स ऑफ एलिमेंट एटम के बारे में बात किया, जिसमें सबसे पहला कंस्टिट्यूएंट था इलेक्ट्रॉन, जिसकी डिस्कवरी को हमने डिटेल में स्टडी किया, डिटेल में, विद द हेल्प ऑफ कैथोड रे ट्यूब एक्सपेरिमेंट. उसके बाद कैथोड रे ट्यूब एक्सपेरिमेंट को हमने कंक्लूड किया, उसके कंक्लूजन निकाले और उस कंक्लूजन के ऊपर बेस्ड प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को हमने फाइंड आउट किया. सो बेसिकली इलेक्ट्रॉन्स are discovered now with the help of cathode ray tube experiment. Now what is the definition of an electron? An electron may be defined as a subatomic particle having a unit negative charge and a mass equal to 1 upon 1837 times the mass of an hydrogen atom. It is denoted by the symbol e raised to 0, and in the subscript minus 1 was written. So e in the superscript 0, in the subscript minus 1. What do you mean by 0? 0 is its mass. It has negligible mass. It is massless. And what is minus 1? Minus 1 is its negative charge. The superscript, see what they have written over here. The superscript 0 represents its mass, and the subscript, which is written in the bottom, represents its electrical charge. So, all about electrons. Atoms are found to be electrically neutral. लेकिन atoms तो neutral होते हैं. So they must contain, in addition, particles that are positively charged, such that the total negative charge of the electrons is equal to the total positive charge. So we know that atoms are electrically neutral, but we just found out that atoms are made up of electrons which are negatively charged. Then how come atoms be neutral? If atoms are made up of negatively charged particles, then atoms should be negative. But no, atoms are neutral. It is known. Always remember that negative and positive, they both neutralize each other. The effect of negative and positive together is basically neutral. So how do particles become neutral? Because negative and positive charges, they neutralize each other, right? So particles are neutral, atoms are neutral because they have electrons, and they must have, listen to my statement, they must have some positively charged particle as well in them. So what are these positively charged particles? Let's talk about them. This realization that since atom is neutral and it contains a negatively charged particle, it also must have some positively charged particle. This realization, ठीक है, ये बल्ब जला किसी साइंटिस्ट के दिमाग में, and this realization led to the discovery of positively charged subatomic particle protons. So let's talk about the discovery of protons, which is the second subatomic particle. Note, when a high voltage current is passed through a gas taken in a discharge tube, which is stored at a very, very low pressure, electrical energy breaks up the atom of gas into negatively charged particles called electrons, and positively charged particle protons are formed by the removal of one or more electrons from the gaseous atom. Since from our atom, suppose this is our atom, by the passage of electricity, we have eradicated or removed one electron. Simultaneously, this atom will now be left with a positively charged particle, which is a proton. So, the process of breaking up of an atom into electrons is not limited to the creation of cathode rays only, but also some other rays, right, which are known as anode rays. कैथोड रेज तो बनते ही है, साथ साथ में एनोड रेज भी बनते हैं, बट वो दिखते नहीं है बिकॉज उनकी प्रॉपर्टीज कैथोड रेज इतनी स्ट्रांग नहीं होती. सो अब जो आगे हम लोग डिस्कवरी पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, दैट इज द डिस्कवरी ऑफ प्रोटॉन्स, which is basically found or studied with the help of anode rays. किसने किया है ये सब? गोल्डस्टीन, यूजीन गोल्डस्टीन. Goldstein noticed another set of rays traveling in a direction opposite to that of the cathode rays. So Eugene Goldstein ने क्या study किया? So he made this setup in which the production of anode rays was noticed. He noticed that another set of rays traveling in the direction opposite to the direction of cathode rays were present, and these rays were positive rays because they were not traveling towards anode, they were traveling away from anode. Actually, these rays were not emitted by cathode, they were emitted by anode only. So just imagine that this cathode has some holes in it. This is known as perforated cathode. ये cathode को क्या बोलते हैं? It is known as perforated cathode. Perforated means with holes. Cathode with holes. So this perforated cathode, the cathode with holes, it acts as a passage through which these positive rays, which are actually originated from anode, they pass through. See, when heavy voltage is applied in this setup of discharge tube, what happens? Cathode rays are produced by cathode, but simultaneously some other invisible rays, anode rays, are also produced. So anode rays, they are produced from anode, that is positive terminal, and they travel in the opposite direction to the cathode rays. They are attracted by the negative terminal. Now this is the negative terminal. Okay, let me mark this negative terminal with the help of red color. Okay, and there are holes in this. I'm sorry about that. I made a big hole. There are small holes in this cathode. So that's why it is a perforated cathode. Through these holes, these anode rays, they just pass through, because anode rays have got this great velocity. So when they approach cathode, they want to get attracted by cathode. When they approach cathode, and when they actually approach the holes in cathode, they cannot stop their velocity. So due to their momentum, they just pass through. They just zoom through the cathode, the cathode in which there are holes, and they emerge out of the other side of cathode, that is behind the cathode. So Goldstein observed some rays getting produced behind the cathode. Now cathode rays are always produced in the direction of anode. They never go in the backside. So which are these rays? So these rays are known as canal rays or anode rays. Why are they known as canal rays? They are known as canal rays since these rays pass through the holes or canals in the cathode. These rays were named as positive rays or anode rays. अभी समझ में आया anode rays कैसे produce हुआ है? Let's go and find the properties of anode rays. So anode rays also travel in a straight line. They consist of minute material particles and hence produce mechanical effects. What do you mean by mechanical effects? अगर हमने एक लाइट पैडलिंग व्हील रख दिया उसके पाथ पे, तो वो पैडलिंग व्हील ऐसे रोटेट होने लगेगा. That means the anode rays exert mechanical force on this paddle wheel, and it starts turning. And this kind of mechanical force cannot be exerted by any other rays of light. Electromagnetic waves जिससे हमारी लाइट बनी है, it is not made up of particles. Some believe that it is made up of particle, but there is a lot of, you can say, debate. But for anode rays, which are made up of particles, which are made up of protons, they definitely produce mechanical effects. They are made up of positively charged particles, and that's why they travel in the opposite direction of cathode rays. Positive rays are deflected by electric and magnetic fields, बट इन अ डायरेक्शन ऑपोजिट टू दैट ऑफ कैथोड रे. मतलब अगर ये सेम सेटअप में मैंने यहाँ पे दो इलेक्ट्रिक प्लेट्स रख दिए, लेट मी जस्ट शो इलेक्ट्रिक प्लेट्स. Okay, so if I put an electric plate over here and over here, let's say that these electric plates are positive and negative. So these anode rays will be attracted towards the negative plate, and they will be repelled by the positive plate. That means they are positively charged, right? This means that they are positively charged, and they contain or they consist of positively charged particles called protons. And this was the discovery of protons. Electrons discover हो गया. प्रोटॉन्स भी डिस्कवर हो गया, एंड दीज रे प्रोड्यूस अ फ्लोरोसेंस ऑन जिंक सल्फाइड स्क्रीन, मैंने बताया था, ठीक है। Their charge to mass ratio, E by M ratio, charge to mass ratio, differs from gas to gas. Its value is much less than that of an electron, and maximum when hydrogen is taken in the discharge tube. मतलब ये जो चार्ज टू मास रेशियो है वो गैस टू गैस डिपेंड करता है, अलग अलग होता है, वेरी करता है। इसका मतलब है हर एक टाइप के गैस में there are different, you can say, charge to mass ratio because of the different number of protons present. So protons may be defined as a subatomic particle having a mass of 1 atomic mass unit. Now you must be wondering, what is this 1 atomic mass unit? We will study it in detail, don't worry about it. Okay, the mass of subatomic particle is not calculated in grams or kilograms. It is calculated in a unit called atomic mass unit, AMU. Okay, which is equal to hydrogen atom, mass of hydrogen atom, and it has a unit positive charge. Proton is denoted by P1, 1 plus. Superscript 1 represents its mass 1 AMU, and the subscript 1 plus or plus 1 represents 1 unit positive charge. Proton is formed by the loss of an electron by an hydrogen atom. So hydrogen atom loses an electron and gets converted into a proton. So every atom consists of a proton. Hydrogen atom consists of one proton, because when one electron is lost from hydrogen atom, it is left with one proton. What are the properties of proton? A proton possesses a unit positive charge plus 1 of the value 1.602 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Now, one very interesting thing on a comparison of properties between protons and electrons. What is the charge of a proton? 1.602 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. This is a positive charge. On the other hand, what is the charge of an electron? Minus 1.602 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Same charge, but opposite, negative. The mass of electron was negligible, do you remember? But the mass of proton is same as that of hydrogen atom, 1 AMU. That is 1837 times the mass of an electron, which is 1.672 into 10 raised to minus 24 grams. The proton resides in the central part of an atom, that is its nucleus. After the discovery of electrons and protons, J.J. Thomson proposed plum pudding model of the atom. J.J. Thomson proposed plum pudding model of an atom. According to this model, an atom is considered to be a sphere of uniform positive charge, and electrons are embedded into it. An atom is considered to be a sphere of uniform positive charge, and electrons are embedded into it. Okay, should I go to this right now? No, this is I think this is little bit too much. Let's keep this topic, that is the discovery of nucleus by Rutherford, or maybe, yeah, by Rutherford, into the in the next topic. But yeah, let's keep it up to discovery of nucleus. So yes, so J.J. Thomson, he was very happy with the discovery of electrons and protons, and he was very quick to give his idea regarding the structure of an atom, because everybody was asking the same question: how does atom look like? What is atom made up of? Yeah, okay, we know that it's made up of electrons and protons, but how these electrons and protons, they stay inside an atom? If you want to draw a picture of an atom, where are these electrons and protons? So J.J. Thomson proposed this plum pudding model of an atom, and he said that an atom is considered to be a sphere of uniform positive charge, That is, the whole sphere is positive, and inside this positive sphere, electrons are embedded, just like a plum pudding. Now, you don't know maybe what is a plum pudding, but you know what is a, uh, um you can say a muffin. Have you had a muffin? Maybe let's say a choco chip muffin. So if you break a choco chip muffin, what do you find inside it? You find all the dough, and inside this dough, small chips of chocolate are embedded. Or have you ever seen uh, so have you seen a watermelon, cut watermelon? So in the watermelon, let me show you a picture. Okay, no, I don't want to show you a picture of watermelon. In the watermelon, you see the red pulp of the fruit, and inside that red pulp, in the cut watermelon, you see seeds, right? So J.J. Thomson told that atom is just like this watermelon. That red part is the positive charge, and the seeds are the negative charge. ठीक है, and the total positive charge is equal to the total negative charge, and that's why the atom is electrically neutral, and he was correct. But that watermelon thing was not very much correct. And the mass of an atom is considered to be uniformly distributed, and that was also absolutely wrong. Here comes the discovery of nucleus, which was done by Lord Rutherford, Ernest Rutherford, I think, a scientist from New Zealand. And his discovery, how he did and what he did and what did he observe, we'll study in the next video, right? And I think in the next video we are going to finish everything about atomic structure. Overall, we'll understand what is atom made up of. After that, we'll go deep into atom and study about the atomic number, the mass number, the distribution of electrons by the Bohr-Bury scheme, how they suggested that there are orbits, and there is electronic configurations, and the atomic number and everything. So that marks okay, yeah, after that comes valence electrons, which we have to study, of course. And then I think the structure of different atoms, and after that comes the bonding, chemical bonding part. So yeah, we have to study a lot of things. Okay, so I think in the next video I'll be able to finish the complete atomic structure. Okay, and then I'll be, I think, able to finish the electronic configuration and valency part. So I know I'm going slow and I'm taking a lot of time, but yeah, this topic cannot be studied in hurry. I know, I remember that some of the students, they requested me to finish this topic before their exam, but I understand that you are having difficulty, but for me also it is difficult to just give you a overview. Overview does not work over here. Here, the details work. Without details, you cannot understand things. Okay, so very soon I'm going to be out with next video, and I'm going to finish this topic. I hope you understand this. That is more of much more importance, rather than just studying for exams. Study for understanding, right? That is more important. See you later. Bye bye.